Choosing a laptop is no easy task. That's probably the reason why you are here. Well, not anymore, because with this guide, your questions will be answered. Whether you're a student looking for a new laptop, or a professional looking for a new workstation, we'll help you to find the right one for you. First, the main and most important factor to decide which specs your laptop should have, is what you're going to use it for. So, before you start browsing through Amazon, you should have a clearly defined idea of what are you going to do with your laptop. If you're a high school student that will mainly use Microsoft Office and web browsing, or if you're a college student with more specific programs, or if you're a programmer, or any other situation, you should know what programs you're going to use, and the minimum requirements. Once you have everything clear, you may continue to the next step. Now, let's actually start with the guide, by naming the most important components of a laptop. First, the CPU. This is where everything happens. All the calculations and processes are run here. Is the most crucial thing to check in hardware specifications of any laptop because it decides overall performance and capabilities of the laptop. Depending on your needs, you may want a more or less powerful CPU. There are two great contenders, Intel and AMD. Although Intel has been on the market for quite a while, AMD has been growing for the last couple of years. There is a ton of CPUs out there, and it could take forever to explain, so we're going to discuss what CPU to choose in another video. For now, just keep in mind it's the brain of the computer. Then comes the RAM, which stands for Random Access Memory. This is where all the data is stored temporarily. This is where all the applications and programs store the resources they use. For example, when you open a Google Chrome tab and enter Wikipedia, all the information, like the text, the images, the audios, HTML code, etc., are stored on the RAM. Because they are temporal, it's unnecessary to store them on the hard drive, since they probably won't ever be used again. Another example is media production. When you edit a video or an image, the preview you look at when you are still editing is stored on the RAM, because it is faster than saving it on the hard drive and rewriting it every time you make a change. As we said, it is temporal, so when you close a program, the memory used is freed. It's important to note that this memory is shared by all the applications, so if you're planning on using multiple applications at the same time, you may want to spend some money adding more RAM. After the RAM, comes the actual storage. Nowadays, there are three types of storage: solid-state drive or SSD. It's the best type of storage, because it is fastest to access for reading and writing. The downside is, it's expensive, so manufacturers usually pack small SSDs to reduce costs. Most common sizes are 128 and 256 GB, although there are many more size options. Hard disk drive. It's literally a disk that spins thousands of times in a second. The pros are that it's cheaper and bigger, usually 1 TB. The downsides are, it's slower. Laptops usually have 5400 and 7200 RPMs hard drives, which are not as fast as a SSD and slow down any task that requires access and data from this drive, such as OS booting. And finally, hybrid state drive. These are a combination between a SSD and a HDD, being faster than the hard disk, but slower than the solid state. It also merges the capacity, usually being around 500 GB. The price also ranges between a SSD and a HDD. The only problem, it's not common for laptops to have them. A highly recommended setup is having a solid-state drive to store the operating system and the frequently accessed files, and a hard disk drive to store the big files. Although, not many laptops support two storage devices. You may also consider having an internal SSD and using an external hard disk drive. Depending on what you're doing, you might want to consider the ports. Most recent laptops feature USB Type-C ports, as well as USB 3.0 and USB 2.0. Some have SD card readers. Also, most recent laptops usually don't have CD drives. After that, we take in consideration everything else. Depending on your needs, you may want a bigger or smaller screen, a full-size or compact keyboard, Backlit or not, you may need it to be lightweight, or touch, or a 2-in-1 laptop. Also, and maybe even more important than anything, your budget. At the end, it depends on you. Our suggestion is to get an Intel CPU, at least 8 GB of RAM, and a SSD. Be realistic, ask yourself if you really need that features. As I've always said, buy the product, not the brand. That's all for this video. We're going to do more in-depth videos about the CPUs, RAM and storage, as well as some suggestions of our favorite laptops. Stay tuned. See you next time, here, at Exotech.